You might go to prison even though you're innocent. It can happen, and it is the subject and title of a new book written by Professor Justin Brooks, director of the California Innocence Project. He spent his career freeing innocent people from prison, including former NFL player Brian Banks. They even made a movie about that. Maybe you've seen it. He's joining us now on the floor to explain how someone could get caught up in the system. Thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You know, this book, some people may roll their eyes when they see the title at first, saying, sure, I don't put myself in those positions. Why is it important for them to read this book and understand its message?
Because after 32 years practicing in the criminal legal system, I've seen it happen to anyone. I've seen people who never imagined they could be caught up in the legal system suddenly find themselves charged with serious crimes and find themselves in prison even though they're innocent.
What inspired you to write this book?
Really, it's the 30 years of representing innocent people and seeing case after case after case. And so after hundreds of lectures on this topic, I sat down and tried to kind of sort through what in my mind were the top 10 reasons that innocent people go to prison. And that's what I kind of structured the book around.
And it really is, it is so straightforward, and it tells the mechanics of different ways. I listened to some of the titles. You hired the wrong lawyer. You live in the country or city. You're in a relationship or live with someone who is murdered. These are scenarios that happen time and again where people in these situations who've done nothing wrong end up in prison.
Yeah, that third one's a perfect example that the majority of murders are actually domestic. And so police are always looking at the partners of the person who's murdered. If you so happen to be the person who also finds the dead body and there's some kind of motive, maybe some problems in the relationship, they're 80% of the way to a conviction at this point. And that's what happened to our client, Kimberly Long. She came home one day. She's a middle-class white nurse, lives out in the suburbs, and she found her boyfriend beaten to death. And she had the unfortunate circumstance that she was in an argument with him earlier in the day. So she became the prime suspect. She got convicted, and later on we were able to prove her innocence.
You detail a lot of the different flaws of our justice system, and some people get caught up in the politics of it, thinking that people who are working to free innocent people are somehow pro-crime in some strange way or form. But you really lay out how these things get their own momentum, from people with their memories and how they can be manipulated to police departments that don't have the resources. What would you want people to know about their role in this and what they can do?
Sure. So first of all, the idea that we're pro-crime is absurd in the sense that we've solved many crimes.
Right.
You know, there's a murder trial going on in Riverside right now where we actually exonerated our client of that murder, and in that process we gathered the evidence against the real murderers, and that's happened a few times. So our organization is about finding the truth. It's about deconstructing cases and finding what really happened. And with most of the people who write to us, we turn them down because either we believe they're not innocent or we believe we can't prove it. We only take very few cases into court, and they're cases where we've developed that evidence of innocence. And sometimes, as you said, there's just procedural problems with the way cases are done, and there's problems with police procedures, for example. And one of the leading causes of wrongful conviction is bad identifications. And I talk about that a lot in the book. And fortunately, in the last couple of years, we've changed the procedures in California to make them consistent with the best science.
One of the things you talk about with that are things like double-blind identification processes. Can you talk about that and why that is so important?
Sure. There's no such thing as good science unless it's double-blind.
Okay.
And what that means for identification procedures is that neither the police nor the witnesses should know who the suspect is in a lineup. So when they go into that room, they're trying to pick the person they remember. When the officer knows who the suspect is, they always have tells. They're not great poker players. And sometimes, even when they do it well, the witness will say, it kind of looks like number 3. And then the officer will say, good job. Right. And now by the time they go to court, they're saying, I'm 100% sure it's number 3. And they weren't. And the jury then looks at that as very powerful evidence, which it's not.
And a lot of people who look at the system, they maybe don't want to believe that we convict people who are innocent. One of the big takeaways from this is just the idea of resources and defending yourself, how there is a price for justice in some ways. You talk about the O.J. Simpson case being the case that proves the wrong here, that he had so much money and resources to fight this case that he was able to get an innocent verdict. The average family income of somebody in prison is $19,000. How much does money matter to proving you're innocent?
Well, you will be financially devastated if you're ever charged with a crime. That's just a reality, even if you're not convicted, because you'll maybe along the way lose your job. You'll spend every resource you have trying to fight that case. But the reality is most people who get charged with crimes in the United States of America are poor people. And then I've seen a lot of people make the poor decision to fire their public defender and hire a private lawyer when they don't have much money to pay. And that's what got me into this work, actually. I represented a woman on death row in Illinois who'd fired her public defender, hired a local lawyer for $10,000, and for that he pled her out, and she got the death penalty on a plea bargain. And it was just a perfect example of, you get what you pay for. She didn't have resources, the lawyer didn't get much money.
And she served 25 years
She served 27 years, and I worked on the case that long. I started her case when I was 29 years old, and I finished it last October.
Professor Justin Brooks with the California Innocence Project, based here in San Diego. It started here in San Diego. The book is called You Might Go to Prison Even Though You're Innocent. You may not believe that right now. Get this book. Trust me, it'll open your eyes. Thanks for spending time with us here today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.